Jim and Terry Show, coming to you from the Hobbit Hole in Bobcaygeon, where it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Covered in snow. Light snow yesterday. I had the joy of taking my car in for servicing, and I enjoy it because I get to walk. Yeah, I drop the car off and walk home. It's about a 1K walk. Nothing out of the ordinary. Nice to set a crisp pace, enjoy the fresh air. And if I drop the car off early in the morning, it's quiet. Hardly any traffic, hardly any lights on. If you do it before the clocks get wound, spring forward, it's actually quite lovely. But now the clocks have spring forward? Okay, so it's a little bit lighter in the morning. I still enjoy the walk. Crisp air, and I get to walk back. So 2K when my car goes in for servicing. Most of it just regular maintenance. Sometimes it's unplanned, like the squeal of what sounds like brakes. No, can't be good news. Well, it wasn't. The good news is I have a reliable service person, and I enjoy the chats with my mechanic. We talk about all kinds of things, including carbon tax. A lot of F. Trudeau flags going up lately in the neighborhood, and I'm thinking, I wonder what this is all about. Well, of course, it's related to the insistence by Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives to spike the hike, which is the second installment of Axe the Tax. And I thought, well, this is worth investigating because I'm not sure that everyone knows, but you do get money back from this, right? There's a rebate. Everybody gets it. And the tax bracket that you're in, the income level you're in, sort of governs some of the quantity of what you get back from the tax, the carbon tax. Well, I started this morning by looking at McGill University and the economics professor there who was involved in looking at whether carbon pricing is the best way forward. And there are a number of articles. The mighty Google. Google seems to be a theme lately. I don't know why. However, I did start with just surveying the territory of carbon tax and articles and seeing who says what and trying to turn the next page, which is why do these people say what they say? In other words, is there a motivation? Is there some reason for this? And you get the government perspective expressed in Canada.ca, how carbon pricing works from February 14th, and arguing in support of both the existing carbon tax levels and rebate levels, as well as arguing that as we transition, good word, transition from fossil fuels. You don't want to hear that word fossil fuels in a negative or pejorative sense if you're in Alberta. And that's where some of these articles, and I looked at one, this is, again, just carbon tax. Type it in and see what's what. So I found not just the government's perspective, but I found some what I would call right-wing perspectives, which is Toronto Sun, the painful truth about Trudeau's rebranded carbon tax. This is again from this year, just a few weeks ago. And then I scroll down and I find Maclean's magazine, which is usually a center-left, and talking about debunking myths about carbon pricing. And then I go to the next one, which is by an organization called Energy Now, which is a fossil fuel headquartered in Calgary, Alberta. Well, of course, I know what they're going to say, which is the painful truth about Trudeau's rebranded carbon tax. As if carbon taxing is an evil policy. Then I get to organizations that are more public-driven, those also interested from a specific part of the political spectrum. CBC, carbon tax change has Canadians asking questions about the tax. Is it really doing what we hope it does, which is reduce our carbon footprint, reduce emissions? Well, if you don't do the carbon tax, what are your alternatives is my first line of questioning. So it's easy to criticize. Everybody does that offhand. Very easy to do, to criticize a policy. What I find offensive to me and to my thought process is people who criticize without offering alternatives. And that's what I find sorely lacking in the Conservatives and Pierre Poilievre. There is nothing except sloganeering from the Conservatives. Even in question period, it's always the pithy, succinct moment that you can put on a meme and rebroadcast, retweet, re-X, whatever they call it now, Instagram this and short message that for political points, but nothing in terms of policy. So if you're still thinking of, is Trudeau going to leave? When is he going to leave? Is it 2024? Is it going to be he's holding on till 2025? The election is scheduled for 2025 in Canada. It's this fall, 2024, in the United States. And you look at the policies of Biden and Trudeau, of Trump and Poilievre, and you can't help but see, at least to my view, right of center is right of center. The farther right you go, the farther right you go. And left of center has its own progressive ghosts and goblins as well, those who are too progressive. And by too progressive, I simply mean people whose policies and what they advocate for, although it may be social justice and they may be warriors, might be too far of a tax burden to impose. But Biden is far more progressive than even Trudeau has gone with forgiving student debt. My goodness, what a progressive policy that is. And can that have negative connotations or impacts, ripple effects? I'm not sure, but I sure advocate for free education, free post-secondary especially. We get a free ride up until, Ontario grade 12. I think most jurisdictions educationally go to grade 12. And you transition to a pay-per-view, pay-per-play kind of philosophy. And I'm not sure that that's the way it should be. It wasn't always that way, at least to the extent that it is now, where it's cost prohibitive. Or if you want to be a doctor, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt while you graduate, or even a 4-year professional degree. You're talking about tens of thousands of dollars of debt by the time you get through. And I'm talking about it in terms of debt because most households and a lot of parents, and with the erosion of the middle class from the 1950s on to the present, you find very few people able to set up those education savings plans to support their kids. And if you got more than one kid, well, then good luck with that. The debt for education starts to ride on the children, and that is an unfair burden to place on future generations. Now, speaking of unfair burdens and future generations, that takes us right back to the discussion on carbon tax. And I wanted to give some details about that because it seems to me that people don't understand the significance of climate change, or they are like ostriches with their head in the sand and pretend that global warming is not real science, that it's not really happening, that it happens in a normal, natural cycle that's as old as the planet itself. And so there's nothing new here. The anthropocentric, the Anthropocene, which is the influence of humanity on the environment, has been well documented and is well known, which takes climate change and climate science into the realm of what we can know and know for sure. And that takes me back to policies such as McGill University's Max Bell School of Public Policy and a Professor Chris Reagan, who is the director of that school. And he said this in an interview that was published by the McGill University just a few weeks ago, saying, quote, "We're playing the long-run game," Reagan said. "It's very easy to say that this is not a good time for carbon tax, that we can't afford it. But the truth is, we need to be reducing emissions in this country." And there is a sense of urgency there. There's a lot of evidence and logic from around the world that suggests that carbon price is not only effective at reducing emissions, but it does so with the best possible effect on the economy. Quote, So what that simply means is the time is now. It is urgent. We need to do it. So forget the spike, the hike. That is a Neanderthal way of looking at what is happening now. But that's what we get from Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives. We get the Neanderthal approach, which is poo-pooing the science, poo-pooing climate change as a woke leftism, poo-pooing everything. Well, BS on that, Mr. Poilievre and the Conservatives. You're good at your sound bites, you're good at your pithy slogans and T-shirts, you're good at your F. Trudeau flags, but you have nothing of meaning and substance to offer Canadians. So there's my point. And my point is that carbon taxing, which is due to go up April 1st, and it is not an April Fool's joke as much as Pierre Poilievre can use that as a soundbite. It's significant. And as much as I am reading about this stuff, I find that there is more evidence and science to talk about the need to price in the cost of pollution. Now, the cost of pollution is something that our future generations, our kids and our grandkids, will bear the brunt of. The forest fires in Alberta, Texas has 1.3 million acres on fire right now. The fire season began early in Alberta, and it's only going to get worse because Danielle Smith has reduced the ability of the province to respond to emergencies. But you can bet she will come running to Trudeau for funding to help combat fire. Yeah, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You are either a fossil fool, fossil F-O-O-L, or you are going to help support the climate science and follow the best policies that we can manage to impact the economy in the least negatively impactful way, in a way that helps encourage people to make better choices about how we are choosing to live our lives. And that includes alternatives. That includes looking for EVs, includes investing in alternative energy, green energy sources, solar and wind, and whatever we can find in terms of electric vehicles, whatever battery. Lithium is in the outs right now, but maybe there are other sources of EV that are less toxic, that are less cost-driven. And maybe we will find our way forward, but we're certainly going to do like the Martian did. Science the hell out of this. That's the way forward. Not by wishful thinking, not by sloganeering, not by pithy T-shirts and quips, not by denying access to the press, but by making information transparent. Climate change, carbon pricing. Do it, not just on April 1st.